Screens. It's a big topic.
Huge topic. This comes up almost every single day in my practice and with our
Me too,
kids.
for sure. Yeah, and our kids. Yeah.
So I have an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And a funny saying around our house, my oldest one will say, "Let's go touch the grass," or if they're on their screens or if they're on there watching a movie or something like that, they'll say, "Mom, we're going to go touch the grass." And I just think that's so cute and so clever.
That.
And I teach that to my patients because it's something that they can say and it's catchy.
No, I love it. It's like a ground. That's actually a piece of mindfulness, and grounding is when you kind of get back to nature. You get your brain out of that like spiral of just screens. Yeah, I love that.
So we kind of have some limits in our house. Some of our rules are that, we try to limit screen time for our kids to like 1 to 2 hours a day. If we're going to have a family movie night on the weekend, we'll make sure that they're not really watching TV the rest of the day. Yeah. We'll make sure that we aren't letting them on their iPads or anything like that. And then we'll get to enjoy a movie night, at the end of the day, and they look forward to it all day. Yeah. And then they're outside playing and doing things. So
there's the balance. Yeah. And I think that looks different at every age, which is tricky because as they get older and they're becoming teenagers, young adults, they really use their phones to communicate with each other, and it becomes a source of like a social kind of networking, which is great that they can stay connected, but it can also be tricky if that doesn't turn off at some point. So I think it's important at night for sure. Some decent amount of time ahead of bedtime, an hour would be wonderful. An hour before bed to shut off the phones, let their brain start to quiet. And it can be a little uncomfortable at first because they're used to just having those pings and that connection. But I do think it's just necessary. And sometimes as parents, it's good for us to set those limits because with a developing brain, it's hard to. I mean, we know it's hard for us, right? It's hard for us to disconnect in those moments. So if it's challenging for us, can you imagine a developing brain, a child, an adolescent? So it's a gift to them. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to say no and know those limits are necessary.
I have a patient that came to me one time and she was nervous about her daughter because her daughter was sad and her daughter wasn't wanting to go to school. And the mom actually told me it was all when she got the phone. So when she got the phone, she had all the social media started. She started seeing her friends go into these parties and things or to go out to eat. And the mom knew it was the phone. So I advised that the mom take away the phone. And, my kids are still little, so I may not get this all the way. But the mom looked at me in shock and said, "No, I could never take the phone away." But I think that's a good point because if the phone is causing sadness, then we really need to be aware of that and maybe not take the phone away, but maybe give her some guidelines. Limits. You can't just hand over the phone and expect that an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old is going to know really what to do. They just like don't
self-regulate. Right? And I love what you just said because in the Teen Journal, there is actually one of the characters we work with is comparison. And so I feel like that's kind of what you're trickling into is that when we look at social media, it's almost impossible not to compare. And for a developing brain, that's really hard to regulate. And so I think that that's awesome that you're kind of guiding the parents to kind of set those boundaries so that they're not losing their joy from the comparison. So that's another piece of the program that's so awesome is becoming mindful of where we're like losing track of it in the journals so that we can shift it and make those healthy boundaries and healthy shifts for our family.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing is when my oldest went to school and got an iPad for the first time, so school's like, get the iPad. And I'm like, oh, great. Now he's got an iPad that he has to have. But I thought it was so cool because at the talk for the parents and even for the kids, they said, don't let your child bring their iPad or device in their bedroom. And this was huge. And I love that it was coming from the school. And some parents need that. Yeah. They don't want them to be the bad guys. They want it to come from someone else. And so if you're not comfortable with being strict with your kid, you can blame the principal. But
the docs.
Or the docs, blame us. But you really need to follow that advice. Everyone here should be, even no matter what the age. I mean, do you let your kids bring it in their bedrooms?
No, we really try. And like it can almost be like a family challenge. Like if it is creeping into the bedroom, we just had holidays and, maybe they're watching one more movie or one more person they're trying to communicate with, maybe reset and kind of say, hey, let's all work on this. Like we all kind of got a little slack on this. Let's all work together to kind of set this boundary for ourselves because that's what's important is kind of resetting ourselves and getting back to those healthy habits. So even if you find yourself slipping into those habits that you feel like are not great, it's just checking in, noticing it, becoming mindful of it, and then shifting it. So you don't need to beat yourself up about it. Regret and guilt don't help you make change. So remember that.
And our program, again, it's Connect the Docs. We want you to sign up today. We have tons of advice. We love talking about all these topics. There's going to be so many more topics coming soon.
Yeah.
But we talk about everything. So we're not just a nutrition program. We're a wellness program. And we want kids to be happy and healthy and well. And this means that we want their bodies to be healthy and we want their brains to be healthy. And so we're going to cover things like screen time. We're going to cover sleep and, all kinds of awesome stuff. So sign up today.